All right, so today we're going to talk about the concrete deck block versus the Tuffblock versus the CAMO block. So let's start with weight, which is a huge factor when you're going to decide what block you're going to work with. You know, I don't know the exact weight of these concrete blocks, but they're heavy, okay? It really doesn't matter if they're 30 or 50 or 60 pounds. I mean, most people are realistically only going to be able to carry one at a time unless you're like He-Man strength or Godzilla strength or something like that. Now, the other two blocks, the top block weighs like 1.6 pounds, I think, and this block weighs about 2.2 pounds. So the CAMO block is a little bit heavier than the tough block, but you know, it's not by much. Unless you're carrying like 30 of these at a time, I don't know if you're going to notice a big difference between the two. All right. So the concrete block, it accepts a 4x4 vertically or 2x material like this. And same with the tough block, it accepts a 4x4 and 2x material like that. The CAMO block is probably the most versatile of the three as far as what size the lumber that you can use. You can use a 4x4 in the middle. You can use a 6x6 here, and you can use up to a 1 5/8 wide material here and up to a 2-inch material there. And I'll show you that. Of course, the concrete block, you know, that's a 2x6. Can go that way or that way. Same thing with the tough block. It can go that way or that way. And with the CAMO block, it can go that way as well. Now, one thing about the CAMO block, because it's versatility, it doesn't really hold the material in there as well or as tight as the other two blocks do. So you can just kind of see there's a lot less play on these two blocks. But the CAMO block again can hold a 4x4 and a 6x6, so it's more versatile, and you can use it for more applications than you can really with these two blocks. Now, one thing I don't like about the CAMO block, a trade-off with it, is it does not hold material as tight. And you can see I got this 4x4 post here, and it's already wanting to fall over, which, depending on what you're doing, may not be that big of a deal. If you're working by yourself and you need this to stay upright, you know, it may be a little challenging for you depending on what kind of surface you're working on. Now, the tough block, one thing I like about the tough block over the CAMO block is it will hold the material in its place much better. So if you need to walk away from it or, you know, use your second hand for something, you have that ability to with the tough block. Same thing with the concrete block. I think it'll hold it in there. Of course, if your surface is level, you know, it should hold it for you. But the tough block works best for that. A couple of other things to really mention. Price-wise, you know, they're all really about the same price. Real comparable, maybe $1 or $2 difference, you know, in them. The CAMO block, I can only find it at Home Depot. They may be sold other places, but I only can find it at Home Depot where I'm at. The tough block, I can only find it at Lowe's or on their website at, I think it's buildtuff.com. You can order them there. And then this block I can find just about anywhere at any, you know, at Ace, Lowe's, Home Depot, hardware stores, you know, Menards, you know, all those type of places you can find them. Let's see here. Some other disadvantages of this block is the concrete block, you know, besides its weight. Again, it does not hold a 4x4 like the CAMO block does. Of course, the tough block doesn't either. It's not going to disperse water or help keep the materials from getting saturated like the CAMO block and the tough block does. And you can see here, it's just concrete, so it's like a sponge. It's going to soak up water, and water's going to probably stay here, and the whatever, you know, dimension material you have sitting here, it's going to be able to soak up that water too. I don't know if you can see on the camera or not, but on the Tuffblock, it's got little, I don't know what you'd call those, little prongs sticking up, and that allows the material to sit so slightly above the surface of the Tuffblock, and allows water and air to go underneath the wood, so that it doesn't pick up or soak up the water. Let's see if we can demonstrate that on the camera here. You can kind of see it where it just sits up just a little bit up off the block, so water will run underneath that 2x6, and maybe hopefully get some air under there too. And it's the same way with the CAMO block. They all support about the same amounts of weight. I know that I actually think the CAMO block can support 100 more pounds than the Tuffblock, but this is like 1,800 pounds of support, 1,700, and I think this one's 1,700 as too. I think that has a lot to do with the surface area of the blocks more than anything. And I know the Tuffblock was brake tested to like 11,000 pounds or something. So these are made out of obviously plastic or some other plastic-like material. I can't say the technical term if I wanted to, but I would just butcher the pronunciation. So I'm just going to call it plastic or plastic-like material. And then obviously this is made out of concrete, obviously a special type of concrete. But those are the big differences. One thing about the Tuffblock is, you know, I guess if you had a piece of material in there, you know, you could maybe secure it somehow on the side of the material. Probably not recommended by the manufacturer, but I don't know, you could maybe zap a screw in the little side pieces here and there to give it some type of permanent attachment. Can't do that on the CAMO block. You know, there's just no way. And then of course the concrete block, there's really no way you're going to be able to do that either. So, you know, they're made, mostly the material's made just to sit in there and, you know, stay in there by, you know, the weight, the dead load of the structure you're building. Some other considerations. I use the Tuffblock the most. And the reason why I use the Tuffblock the most is because it's really the most concealing. Whenever you're using it on a project, or in my case, we build a lot of sheds, we build portable buildings, a lot of outdoor type structures. And the one thing I like about the Tuffblock is when it's underneath the structure, you can only see a small portion of it when you're using a single band board. So, you know, you're like that a lot of times. That's what you can kind of see out of the building versus a CAMO block. It's going to stick out a lot more further outside the building. So depending on what you're doing, whether you're building a deck or whatever, and if you want to conceal these, you're going to have to compensate for that on your build, because it's really not a good way to cover them up. Same thing with these concrete deck blocks. They stick out like a sore thumb. If you don't offset your posts under your structure, they're going to be able to be seen. Most of the buildings that we build, there's no skirting or nothing anyways, but you know, you could see it no matter what you're using. But these just have a lot more tinier profile, as you can see the difference here. You know, they're much smaller, and it's pretty comparable to the Tuffblock's pretty comparable to the width. You know, the square footage or square area of the surface for these blocks. You can just kind of see here, like, the difference. The CAMO block is quite a bit significantly larger than the Tuffblock. You know, so something to keep in mind. Also, when you're getting your ground ready, when you're prepping the ground to put these blocks on, you're going to have to prep that much area, or need that much area of prep for these. The only time I ever use the CAMO block over the Tuffblock as well, if they don't have any Tuffblocks in stock, or I need to utilize a 6x6 post. And I don't utilize 6x6 posts very often. In some cases we do, but most of the time we're usually using these 4x4 posts. They're more than adequate for what we do. So my choice is the Tuffblock. I think it's the best out of the three. If you're using it for a 4x4 post, obviously you're going to use a 6x6 post. Your only option is the CAMO block. They're great both. They're all good products. I rarely ever use these. Used to use the flat blocks. What are they? I think they're 8 inches wide, 8 inches wide, 16 inches long, and about 4 inches thick. I use those sometimes too, but like this, they're heavy, they're hard to work with. And so obviously I try to avoid these when I can carry a whole stack of these. They're just so light. I can carry 10 of those at a time, or usually I can just make one trip for most of the structures that we build and carry them all out there in one trip. If I've got 10 of these I need to put out there, I'm making 6 trips from the truck to the trailer, if I don't have any type of a wheelbarrow or some other mechanical means, or some extra help maybe. So really like these just for the weight factor. They're really easy to work with. And these little edges right here, they make a great shovel. When you're trying to level out the ground, or wherever you're trying to put it, you're trying to get it just right. So these just have a lot of great features. Again, Tuffblocks are my favorite. CAMO block's going to be my second pick, and then this one. Unless I'm going to use a 6x6, I'm going to go with the CAMO block. But yeah, so far great products. Really like using them. Those are the big differences, and again, they all have their advantages and disadvantages. I know the Tuffblocks and the CAMO blocks are really starting to rise in popularity. Sometimes they can be hard to find at my local store. I will tell you that I tried to order Tuffblocks online, and once I ordered, I think like 20 of them. I ordered like a whole box. I think they sell them 24 or 2 dozen or something in a box. And I did order them, and I waited about 2 weeks. I did not hear nothing from the Tuffblock manufacturer, and I eventually just ended up having to get a refund because they were just taking so long to ship it. And that was in the springtime, so I'm sure that they were busy and they had a huge back order of the product. Obviously, that the demand is there, and that's a good thing, because I want them to keep making these, because keep selling them and keep making them, because I really like them. They're really easy to use. I think they're aesthetically pleasing versus, say, a concrete block and some shims, or even this big chunk of concrete right here. So anyhow, if you have any questions, post them in the comments. I probably use probably 500 to 1,000 Tuffblocks a year. Maybe a couple hundred of these, and hopefully none of those. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Take care.